evening. My name is Ahmed Alamuddin, and I'm going to walk you through the change plan presentation for the project at my organization, which we are planning on doing. This is related to replacing the pharmacy software platform, which has been with the company for the last 40 years. It's a captive platform where which is actively uh, being enhanced. And the project by itself is to replace it with a more modern application. A little bit about the organization. Pharmaca Corporation is a long-term care pharmacy services provider. We have close to 120 pharmacies across the nation. And like I mentioned, the change we are deliberating is to replace the software application. This particular dispensing software has been with the company for 40 years. Um, it's a green screen mainframe and have scalability challenges with regards to volume, and it's not intuitive to to the new users at the pharmacy. The platform is not agile with the workflow, so it's difficult to get into newer lines of business since it's complex to modify the platform. Um, if there is a new hire, it takes up to 6 months for the new hires to get up to speed onto this platform. Um, and the cost of maintenance of the software platform is high compared to newer agile technologies. What we would like to get out of this change initiative or the desired result is to replace the legacy pharmacy dispensing platform and modernize it with a more intuitive application and roll it out across all pharmacies. We would like to increase the productivity at the pharmacy for new technicians so that we can cut the time from 6 months to 2 weeks to get them up to speed from a productivity perspective. We would like to reduce the cost of ownership of this dispensing platform and at the same time provide training and support to the technicians during this transition phase. Those are a couple of goals and results which we are looking for in rolling out this change across all the pharmacies. For role of a leader, I chose to elaborate on the EDCAR change model, which is applying this model of change with a focus on the leader. As part of the EDCAR model, which stands for awareness, desire, knowledge, ability, and reinforcement, there are certain goals which EDCAR model ask us to focus on. The first goal is creating awareness, communicating the need of change, which should be fundamental and important. By creating awareness of change goes beyond simply announcing it. And at Pharmaca leadership team, we would like to develop a campaign to introduce the concept of this change and how changing the pharmacy dispensing software will help the company internally to improve productivity and externally to create competitive advantage in the market. So that's goal one, creating awareness of the need of change. Goal two is desire to make the change. Um, and this goal talks about identifying change leaders and designating them to support change. At Fabrica, we we take this very important, and we would be identifying key leaders in the organization who have influence and can share the vision to drive this change across teams and bringing individuals on board to why this change is important. Goal 3 for EDCAR model is provide knowledge on how to change. The knowledge milestone is primarily about training and education. At Pharmaca, we plan to develop a comprehensive training program for various roles, whether it's technician, pharmacist, and what is expected out of those roles. Um, as part of the resources who are getting impacted through this change. Goal 4 is to ensure that employees can make the change. To bridge the gap between knowledge and ability, change leaders are put in charge of coaching individuals or teams. At Farmerica, mm, since we identified the change leaders from various departments, we will constitute a focus group to discuss any feedbacks which the change leaders have got from the employees. If there is any general concern or if there is any specific concern, and we would formulate a plan to address for smooth transition from legacy to new software platform. Reinforcing the change, reinforcing the new method, processes, and expectation is key to sustainable change. Once we change the platform, we as part of the playbook we would offer refresher courses and on-job training courses on-job training programs to employees at the company so that they uh, we can reaffirm the management commitment that we are going to handhold the employees through this change, which is a major change for a pharmacy organization. Force field analysis. The force field analysis is usually done to identify the driving forces and the restraining forces and logically walk through on how to mitigate those restraining forces and how to incrementally make the change. As part of the force field analysis, we go through the 12 steps. Step 1 is identifying the change. As we mentioned, we would like to change the dispensing platform into pharmacy. Step 2 through 9 are combined in the table on the right side, identifying the driving force, identifying the restraining forces, defining the value scale, give values for driving force, give values for restraining force, total the driving forces, total the restraining forces, and then total driving and restraining forces together. So in the table, we identify the driving forces as opportunity to replace with scalable platform on modern technology. New software would be intuitive and will increase productivity, and the long-term cost to maintain this software is going to be less. The restraining forces for this change is too much destruction in the business, long implementation time, and then user engagement and expectation. And at the same time, it's too costly to implement as part of the capital cost. So when we total these two, the driving forces and the restraining forces, the sum, the driving forces comes up to 20 and the restraining forces come up to negative 18. In step 10, we identify what does this change really mean. In this step, we look at the scores for the driving force and restraining force and see if we need to update any of those scores to make sure that the value is a realistic value, knowing the organization and the complexity of change which we would like to do. So after adjusting the scores for both the driving forces and restraining forces, the total would come up to -7, which essentially means that the restraining forces are scoring higher than the driving forces, and this becomes an opportunity to identify uh, mitigation strategies to overcome the restraining forces, which we go to step 11. We identify a couple of changes with regards to how to address the restraining or the resistance we have for change. We added um, a couple of mitigation steps on the driving force side, where we will incrementally implement the strategy. We will collect the feedback and incorporate the feedback as we roll out this change across the organization. So rather than rolling it out completely or rolling the change in higher volumes, we would do it in phases, obtain the feedback from the phases, and we will incorporate that feedback into the subsequent phases. Um, and with regards to cost, the one-time too costly to implement restraining force, we understand that it's very high. We would uh, we would get we would get a quicker ROI once we are able to complete the project quicker. The As part of the change process in the organization, I chose to elaborate on the Kotter's 8-step change model. The Kotter's 8-step change model the talks about in step one the sense of urgency. So the Kotter's 8-step change model talks about the sense of creating a sense of urgency, and the Pharmatica leadership would need to create urgency and justify why it is important to replace the legacy dispensing platform and how it is holding the company back. Step two is creating a guided coalition. The company leadership need to identify key resources across its functional departments and share the urgency of change. Step three is developing a change vision. The leadership team needs to define a formal change vision and communicate that to across the organization. Step four is communicate a vision for buy-in. The formal plan needs to be communicated across broader audience in the company to get buy-in, while justifying how the change will affect the resources. Step five is empowering broad-based action. The company needs to identify the risk and resistance reason for why the change will not be successful and implement mitigation strategies to counter any roadblocks for driving this change. Step six is generating short-term wins. As part of this change, we would identify certain milestones, and achieving those milestones would be shorter wins to celebrate. Never let up. The leadership team needs to continuously identify resistance forces and mitigate and make sure that the momentum is continuous. Incorporate change into culture. Once the pharmacy software is changed, the framework of implementing this change needs to be incorporated so that incorporated and into a playbook so that this could be reused for any major change the organization would want to deliver. The anticipated employee response, I put a comparison of what the employee response would be without a change management, a formal change management process, and employee response during the change management process if we follow the methodology. Without the change management, they're not understanding the need for change. It demotivates employees and it will reflect on the company's productivity. Fear of unknown and how this change will impact the job will create anxiety and insecurity. It will create loss of trust and faith in leadership due to no communication or assurances. Information gap will create rumors to flow in organization, cause high potential resources to depart the company. If we run this change in a structured way, following the methodologies which we have learned, the 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 leadership team would create urgency for change and ensure that employees understand the necessary for change, sharing the vision on how the change will transform the company. Change management concepts will enable leaders to be change agents and obtain feedback from the employees. Continuous communication, status updates, town halls, emails, or memos will keep everyone informed and what to expect while the change is being implemented. And these are the references which I refer to while building this presentation. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to walk through the change plan presentation for replacing the pharmacy software platform for Pharmatica Corporation. Thank you very much.